We have already seen how to model illumination for the purposes of rendering using the Phong illumination model. Now we will see how this illumination model is used to compute colors for pixels or fragments in OpenGL. This operation is called shading in OpenGL. First, let us look at a recap of the Phong illumination model. So remember that the Phong illumination model that we are considering is this local Phong illumination model that has the diffuse component and the specular component due to M light sources, and then it has the ambient component. So we have to now answer the question where and how is the color of various objects computed, and how is this color transferred to the various pixels that cover the surface of this object in the scene, or that depict the surface of this object in the scene. So one of the easiest kinds of shading that you can do is constant shading. What is simply done is that one color or intensity is assigned to the entire object. This is very easy to do, as you can see in the scene that the cube is blue, the teapot is yellow, and they are all of a constant shade. So the entire object is of one shade. This makes the scene look very blocky, and there are no depth cues in this scene. You can only see the boundary of the teapot, but the curvature of the shape of the teapot is not apparent from the shading. So there are no depth cues when you do constant shading. What is the next best thing you can do? Because obviously this is not enough to produce good quality rendering. It is the fastest thing you can do, constant shading, fastest and the simplest, but it does not give you very good visual output. So what is the next best thing that you can do? The next best is what is called as faceted shading. So in faceted shading, instead of giving one constant color to the entire object, you assign one intensity per polygon or per face of an object. And how do you do this? You have a normal for every polygon. Therefore, for that entire polygon, apply the Phong illumination model, compute the color, and assign that color for the entire polygon. So one intensity per polygon is computed from the surface normal and the light vectors. This is also reasonably fast to compute, and it is very simple. You just need to do that computation once for every face of the object. But you can do still better. And what is that still better? Instead of computing color once per face, compute it at every vertex, right? So for that you need to have normals at the vertices. So what does it mean to have normals at the vertices? Well, you take all the polygons that share a vertex and average out their normals at the shared vertex. That gives you what is called a vertex normal. Use that vertex normal to compute the Phong illumination model. The intensity that comes from that computation is assigned to that vertex as a color. Linearly interpolate this color from the vertices to the fragments during rasterization using scanline interpolation. This gives you smoother shading than faceted shading, and it eliminates the discontinuity that you see at the edges of the various faces in faceted shading. This kind of shading, where you compute illumination at the vertices and then interpolate the color to the pixels, is called Gouraud shading. Can we do better? Yes, we can do even better. Instead of computing color at vertices and then interpolating to pixels, what happens if we take the normals at the vertices and we interpolate these normals to every pixel? So now you have per pixel normals. Then use these per pixel normals to compute intensity or colors at every pixel using the Phong illumination model. So that will give you per pixel colors. This is known as per pixel shading or Phong shading. Note that Phong shading is different from the Phong illumination model. Phong illumination model is what you have been using throughout to model light transfer or illumination transfer. Whereas Phong shading is a kind of shading where you interpolate the normal from the vertices to every pixel using again scanline interpolation, and then use that per pixel normal to compute color at every pixel. This gives you even smoother shading than Gouraud shading, but it is still only local illumination and it is not global illumination. So no matter which one of these shadings you pick, so whether you are doing constant, whether you are doing faceted, whether you are doing Gouraud or per pixel, you are still getting only local illumination. There is no global illumination yet. So you only have that ambient term to account for all indirect illumination, and that is a rather poor approximation as we have discussed already. If you want to get global illumination, that means you want to get reflections and better shadows and reflections between diffuse to diffuse surfaces or mirror reflections and so on, then you have to simulate it by putting in extra effort in the graphics pipeline. Especially in the rasterization graphics pipeline, you have to go outside of your standard rendering methods to do this, because the way in which shading is implemented in a rasterizing pipeline, it is not amenable for computing global illumination. So we will see in the next section of lectures on texture mapping how textures can be used to get shadows, or how textures can be used to get reflections and so on, that give you some notion of global illumination in your scene. So notice that I have also put shadows here, even though shadows are still possible with local illumination, but because we never compute the visibility of the light source with respect to the surface point when we are computing illumination, in standard OpenGL shading, there are no shadows. We at least need to do this visibility computation to figure out if a surface point is in shadow or not. And that we have to do separately in addition to the standard shading computation that happens. So in any kind of this, so in any one of the shadings that we have seen, or the kinds of shadings that we have seen so far, there are no shadows. Now let us look at some details of faceted shading, Gouraud shading, and Phong shading. Faceted shading is fast. However, the surface does not look smooth if a piecewise linear approximation to a flat surface is being done. So if you have facets which are at slightly different orientations from each other, right, so that their normals are only slightly different, and you assign and you do faceted shading, therefore you assign different colors to these faces, then due to this effect known as the Mach band effect, the border between these faces seems to be at a larger level of discontinuity than actually should be present. So what do we mean by that? Consider this example. So consider that you have colored facets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 here using these shades of gray, starting from very light gray and going up to very dark gray or black. Now if you take an intensity profile along a scan line, then the actual intensity should look like this step function when you go from 1 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6. However, due to the Mach band effect, what we end up perceiving is a slightly larger discontinuity at the border between these facets. That makes these facets look more non-uniform. So, which means that if you have faces that are only slightly varying in their normals, so assume that these are the normals and these deviations in normals are not much, and you are sort of you shade one very dark and the next one is only slightly lighter, then there is something that is, slightly different in shade, and there is something, then the next one is, so these intensity variations are not significant because the variations in the normals are not significant. So the actual intensity variations may not be that significant. But due to the Mach band effect, what you will end up perceiving when you look at this is that you will perceive higher level of discontinuity at the borders. So these are the borders between the facets. So here I am seeing a side view of the facets if it was not clear. And this is a top view of a series of faces, right, that represent, say, a surface. Then due to the Mach band effect with faceted shading, they appear more discontinuous than they are. And why the Mach band effect happens? It is because our visual system is more attuned to picking up differences in intensity or changes in intensity than it is to picking up flatter intensity regions. Okay, so our visual system tends to accentuate these differences in intensity, and instead of perceiving an intensity profile like what is shown in A, we end up perceiving what is shown in B. So this is a major disadvantage for faceted shading. So here is an example of faceted shading that you can see. So here we have the surface of a sphere, and in this case the sphere is sort of represented using these larger size quads. You can assume that each one of these quads is broken into two triangles because we are only rendering triangles. So you can see that here is a sphere with a specular highlight. If you do faceted shading with this size of polygonal faces, this is the kind of faceted shading that you get. If you reduce the size of the polygonal faces, so tessellation is the word that is used to describe breaking up of one surface. So say this is one surface, and if I increase the tessellation, then I might represent the same surface using more number of triangles, right? So if I represent the same surface by doing, say, this, and there is no unique tessellation of representing a surface, but you can certainly, so this is lower tessellation when you are using fewer elements to represent a surface. This is a higher tessellation when I am using more elements to represent a surface. So if I increase the amount of tessellation, then you can see that the facet sizes have become smaller, and the discontinuities are therefore smaller in appearance, right? So you reduce the size of the discontinuities that appear into faceted shading. Okay, so you will find that as you go on increasing tessellation, the smallest polygon that you can display on the screen is going to be the size of 1 pixel. So if you increase tessellation so much that every polygon is just 1 pixel large, then faceted shading actually reduces to per pixel shading. Because if every facet is exactly 1 pixel, then computing a normal for every facet is the same as computing a normal for every pixel. However, by increasing tessellation, you create a lot more geometry. So that means that your graphics pipeline has to process more geometry to get smoother shading. So if you do more tessellation to get smoother shading, it means that your pipeline has to work harder because you are just generating more geometry. A better way to get smoother shading from what we get in faceted shading is to move to Gouraud shading. In Gouraud shading, you linearly interpolate the intensity or the color that you compute at vertices along scan lines. So to compute colors at vertices, we said that we need the normal at vertices. So to compute vertex normal, so here is an example that you can see. We have taken all the faces. So you have faces 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. These 5 faces share this vertex V. They have the normals N1, N2, N3, N4, N5. So therefore the vertex normal NV can be computed as the averaged normal of all these 5 normals. That is one way of computing a vertex normal. Then you use this vertex normal to compute color at this vertex. Do this for all the vertices, right? And then once you have done that, you will get colors or intensities at the vertices. So say you have computed I1, I2 and I3, and now you can interpolate this color to any pixel that is generated as a result of rasterizing this triangle. Say your primitive is a triangle. So when you rasterize this primitive, if you want to figure out the color at any pixel, then all you need to do is scanline interpolation. So you will first compute the color at IA, then you will compute the color at IB using these, right? So this is just linear interpolation between I1 and I2 and I1 and I3. And then you linearly interpolate between IA and IB to get the color at IP. And you repeat this process for every pixel on every scan line. So this is standard scanline interpolation. Here is the output that you will get. So you can see that if you use large sized facets, in faceted shading you would have got the result that is on the left side bottom. You have seen this result earlier, whereas the result on the left side top is what you will get if you do Gouraud shading. Whereas if you increase the tessellation level, then instead of getting the result on the left side, you get the result on the right side. And you can see now that the shape of the specular highlight is way better defined. So the reason that is happening is because now you have smaller sized faceted on the right hand side. So both faceted shading and Gouraud shading benefit by increased tessellation. But remember, whenever you increase tessellation, you are paying the price of processing more geometry. So our aim by improving our shading algorithm for going from faceted shading to Gouraud shading is to get smoother and smoother shading, right? And we have largely eliminated all the discontinuity that we were seeing at the facet boundaries due to the Mach band effect when we have moved from faceted shading to Gouraud shading.